Mr. Rush's music tutorial clips.
Have you seen the clip of him?
Hello and welcome back to Mr. Rush's music tutorial clips, and on this episode we're going to have basically just a bit of fun. You've been working previously on other videos of mine about using loops and maybe creating drum beats and things like that, but I couldn't wait to give you this lesson, which is basically just a bit of fun. So let's get into GarageBand. I've got myself a new little black dot here, which is a bit helpful for me to explain to you what's going on and show you with me black dot. So he's running about at the minute, having a little look, but he's not really good, is he? You're looking for GarageBand, mate. GarageBand. Yeah, it's a white guitar on an orange background. Okay, come on. Yes, that's the one. There we go, in there. So we're in GarageBand, and remember, it opens on the last screen of the last project, and we need a new project. So let's come out of here. Let's come out of their project. Let's create a new project by pressing the plus button. All right. When we're in our new project, you've got all of the different screens with the different instruments, okay? But this time, we're going to go to the one that's a keyboard. And on the one that's a keyboard, you've got Smart Piano, we've got Alchemy Synth, and we've got this thing called a sampler, okay? Now let's go into this sampler and discuss what samples are. So a sample is, it's something not that big. Okay, if you imagine you were going into a supermarket and they were trying to sell a new brand of crisp or maybe breakfast cereal, and they will sometimes give you little samples for you to have a go at tasting them to see if you like them, and then hopefully you'll buy some. So that's a little bit like what it is in music as well. It's not basically a lot. It's a little snippet, a small little bit of music or sound that you can use in a bigger bit of music. So in GarageBand, there are a few onboard samples, and what you can see at the top here is there's one called bark, okay? And if we press one of the keys at the bottom, it triggers off a bark, okay? And then if you go into there, you can also go to the library and find there's one called giggle. There's a kids cheer. There's an ooh. Oh. And there's a party horn. Okay, now I've purposefully only played the one note so far because I'm keeping the secret of what happens with the other notes for when we record our own sample. Because what you can do in GarageBand is record your own sample by pressing this red button. Now, before we do that, I just need to tell you a little bit about this here. This is the input, okay? And the input means the microphone, basically. What you can see is the bar moving up, and if I'm louder with my voice, it gets higher up the top, and if I'm quiet, it's right down the bottom. So when you're doing your sample, you want it to be nice and strong about where it is now. You don't want it too soft, and you don't want it too loud. Okay, I think you get the message. So when you press record, start saying whatever it is that you want to do, and I'm going to try a different one. Ready? Here we go. I like pickles with me burgers. And then stop. You have to press the record button to stop it again. Now you'll notice here, this is called a sound wave, all right? And it represents the sound that you've just made that is now recorded. And the higher up and lower it goes, the louder it is. And the ones that just look like a line, that bit is very, very quiet or nothing at all. So what I'm going to do is tidy it up because I don't need this bit at the end. So you see this little part here, I'm just going to drag it along until the end of the main bit, and then at the start there's a little bit of extra bit at the start which I don't want, so I'm just going to drag that along to where it starts, so probably about here. Let's have a listen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press the C3 button and see what it sounds like. I like pickles with me burgers. Oh yeah, that just sounds like me, doesn't it? I like pickles with me burgers. Good, but what's going to happen now if I play somewhere down here? What's going to happen to the sound if I play it lower down the keyboard? I'm going to pause now so that you can have a little think about it and maybe ask around the room and see if anyone knows what happens when you play the same sample but lower down the keyboard. Right, so I'm going to press, let's try this note down here and let's have a listen and see what happens.
I like pickles with me burgers.
Oh, very good. So it's lower in pitch and it's also, something else has changed, it is slower. Okay, it takes longer for the sample to finish than it does when it's the original at C3. Let's try and see what it sounds like at C2. Okay, so it sounds the same rhythm, but it's much slower now and it's lower pitch. So let's try the other way. What's going to happen if I move up towards C4? Let's find out, shall we? Let's start with this note here.
I like pickles with me burgers.
As you probably predicted, it goes much faster and the pitch changes. So it's much higher in pitch. We could play it a bit higher.
I like pickles with me burgers. I like pickles with me burgers. I like pickles with me burgers.
Okay, and you can also press this loop here and it will tidy it up, and when you press any of the keys, it will loop it. It will keep playing the same sample round and round again. I like pickles with me burgers. 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 Okay, you can also reverse it and it will play it backwards. Which is quite interesting to listen to, but I'm not sure how you would use it. Then you can go back to this button where it says revert, and you can just revert it back to as it was before. I like pickles with me burgers. I like pickles with me burgers. Okay, and then when you're done with your samples, if you click up here where it says My Sample 2, you can go in and you can edit it, and you can change it as whatever you want to call it. You could call it burgers. And then you can build up a bank of different sounds and samples that you can use in your piece of music, which I'll come back and demonstrate in a minute. I hope you have fun playing around with the samples and creating your own. Now, if you want to use the samples that you've created into a piece of music that you've been working on, so for example, the pieces of music that you've been working on the last few music lessons, where you've used the loops that are in GarageBand, you might want to try and add one of your loops, so long as it's kind of quite sensible and not too loud, not too long, and quite catchy. Then what you need to do is make sure that you record the loop, the sample, in the project that you want it to be in, okay? So I've come into a project that I've been working on, and I've recorded a sample that sounds remarkably like the one I did before.
I like pickles with my burgers.
So I'll just press C3.
I like pickles with my burgers.
Okay, and when you're in your project, what you can do is, like if you were recording any other instrument, you can use this toolbar at the top. So a handy thing to make sure, you see this little, we've got the play bar at the top, that's play, that's record, and this means that the cursor will go right back to the beginning. This is the cursor that moves along the top. So just check, it could be in any random part. When you press that button, it goes to the beginning. Okay, and then you can play your piece from the beginning and try and see which note you could play that fits your sample in time with the music that you've created. Because what's really important, and the reason why you've got so many different notes when you've got the sampler, is you want to make your sample fit to the music. Okay, you don't want it to not be in time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press play on my piece of music, and I'm going to mess around with playing all of the different keys until I've found one that I think fits really nicely with the piece of music. So here we go.
I like pickles. I like pickles. I like pickles with my burgers.
So that one sounds quite good. So you get the idea. When you're happy, so actually this note
I
here
like pickles with my burgers.
fits with the drum beat, okay? The trouble was it was a bit quiet, so what I can do is I can go to this brick button, I call this the brick button, and it takes you to the arranger window. And this is all of the pieces of the loops and the things that I've created for my project. And what I can do, in the middle of the screen here, I can pull this out and I get all these faders, so I can turn up and down all of the different instruments. And the burgers, which I've called, I like the fact it's called burgers there, I can turn this up a bit so that it's a bit louder, because it was hard to hear it really, wasn't it? So let's go back into it. If I need to go back into the burgers, the sampler, you have to click into this area, okay, and then you go back in. And when you're ready, you can press record, and every time you press any key, it will be recorded. So let's see what I come up with. Okay, I'm going to do it here.
I like pickles with my burgers. I like pickles with my burgers. I like pickles with my burgers.
Now, you don't want it to happen too much.
I like pickles with my burgers. Pickles with my burgers. I like pickles with my burgers.
Okay, so what you'll notice, I only did it 3 times on each kind of cycle of the music. And what you don't want to do is keep pressing the loop, the sample, over and over again, because it'll just get annoying. We just want it to be a little feature that happens every now and then. So if we go back to the arranger window, you can see that it's recorded a part, all right? Now, at one point, you may have noticed that I experimented and I pressed it in a different time, and I didn't really like it. But let's have a listen, see what we think. You can move the cursor by dragging it along so that it will start playing at any point you want. So let's press play and listen.
I like pickles with my burgers. I like pickles with my burgers. I like pickles with my burgers.
Now, that was where I experimented and I didn't really like it. So what I can do is I'll probably just get rid of that. There's lots of different ways of doing it. I can put the cursor where I want to cut it from. So you can see that's there is where I want to cut it from. I can click on this area once to highlight it and then click on it again, and you'll see that it gives me lots of options, and I'm going to split it. So here it gives me a pair of scissors, and I just move my finger down and I slice that off. Okay, and what I've done is I have cut this sample so that that's one piece and then the rest of it is another piece. But if I was to delete this, I'll be deleting all of the other stuff. So what we need to do is move the cursor. Let's say we move it to where it says D, and I do the same. I press this area once, I press it again. When it says split, I get a pair of scissors, I run my finger down, and now you'll see that I've got one section there, one section there, and one section there. And it's this section that I want to delete. So I just highlight that, press it again, and I get the option to delete. Okay? Now there is another way of doing it. I can go back to undo just because I want to show you the different way. So this is as it was before. I can highlight the whole area, highlight it once, press it again, and I can instead go to this section which says edit. And when you go in there, you see all of the notes individually, okay? And then what you can do is just highlight the note that you don't want and press delete, okay? But I'm not sure, is that the one that I don't like? Let's just double check. So you can drag the cursor back and just make sure by pressing play at any point where the cursor is.
I like pickles with my burgers.
It is this one, isn't it?
I like.
Now, that was the one that I put in the wrong place. Now, I could highlight it and then delete it, or what I could do is just move it to where I want it, because that is where I should really have had it, the start of that bar. So let's see if this sounds any better. Oops, accidentally pressed that.
I tacos with my burgers.
Yeah, that's worked. So I've just moved it around. I've edited it into the right place. When you're done, you click on done there. All right, so. And there we have it. I've got my sampler featured in my piece of music. So you can have a go yourself. But remember, don't put too many samples in your project and only put them in sparingly. See, in total, I've only put mine in 6 times, okay? You don't want to go crazy. All right, have fun.
Rushes music tutorial clips.
Have you seen the clip of him?